Oh hey, and welcome back to my channel. I'm just reading through my recipe just to make sure I have everything I need for today. You know, recently I've been watching the latest season of Hell's Kitchen, which, thinking back, I think that was like the start of Gordon Ramsay's television career in the United States. And now, of course, he's had all kinds of different shows and stuff that are on. But I remember watching him in Hell's Kitchen back when it first started, ages and ages ago. So it's fun to see how the show has changed now. But one thing that hasn't changed in the entire time that Gordon Ramsay has been doing that show, Hell's Kitchen, is that he's always had one particular recipe on the menu, and that is his recipe for beef Wellington. And that got me thinking, you know, I should try to make Gordon Ramsay's beef Wellington. It's a recipe that he prides himself on, and it's one that he worked on for ages to get right. So why not benefit from his experience? So I found the recipe in actually one of the cookbooks of his that I already owned. It is Gordon Ramsay's Home Cooking. And so I'm gonna be making that for you today. Now, if you would like to follow along with me and make the recipe alongside, you can get the recipe. I'm gonna be posting it in a link in the description below this video. I'll post it on my website so that you can follow along if you'd like. But without further ado, guys, let's make some magic. Okay, so here's everything that we should need in order to make 2 beef Wellingtons, which actually in total serves 4 people. So it's, you know, each Wellington is going to be for 2 people. So now the first thing that you need to do is actually a little bit of preparation in advance. The 2 pieces of beef tenderloin, which are 14 ounces a piece, you're supposed to wrap in plastic wrap in order to set their shape and let them to chill overnight, which I have already done. And I just removed the plastic wrap. So now we're gonna move on to the next stage, which is cooking the beef. So let's head over to the stove. So in my cast iron skillet, which I have over a high heat, I'm going to add a little bit of olive oil. Then I'm going to sear the beef on all sides until it is brown all over and rare in the middle. Gordon says that this should take about 30 to 60 seconds. Then I'm gonna remove the beef from the pan and leave it to cool. All right, guys, so my meat has been seared. It is now time to let it sit off to the side to cool down. Y'all, I have to say, I know that his instructions said 30 to 60 seconds, like in total. I went like 30 to 60 seconds per side because I really wasn't getting a lot of browning. Now, it could be that I did not let my pan get hot enough before I started searing. That is definitely a possibility. But I also, you know, I wanted to make sure that the inside was rare, but it wasn't like raw. Raw! 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 Because I know Chef Ramsay, he doesn't like it when food is raw. And that is my smoke alarm, kids, because when you cook in a tiny little apartment kitchen, you build up a little bit of smoke. Let me take care of that and I'll be right back. All right, so crisis averted. My house did not burn down, but I did have to open up a few windows in order to get some of the smoke out. So if you hear a little bit of noise in the background, that's what it is. It's the noise of the outdoors. The next thing that we're supposed to be working on is our mushrooms. Now, I've already finally chopped these. This is 1 pound of mushrooms that I have finally chopped up. And we also need to add in the leaves of a sprig of thyme. Let's move on and get that on the stove. So we're gonna saute the mushrooms in a hot pan with a little olive oil and the thyme leaves, and of course, add a little bit of salt and pepper. And then Chef Ramsay says when the mushrooms begin to release their juices, continue to cook over a high heat for about 10 minutes until all the excess moisture has evaporated and you're left with a mushroom paste. And then we have to remove it from the pan and leave it to cool. All right, so that's the mushrooms done. And I have to say, kids, I did do things that I don't know were quite part of the recipe. One was that I used the same pan for the mushrooms as I did for the beef, partly because I'm lazy and I didn't want to have to wash the pan out or get a new pan that I was going to have to wash. But also because like there was a lot of flavor left behind by the beef as I was searing it, and so might as well get that into the mushrooms as well. So I don't know if this is the way that Chef Ramsay would do it, but it's the way I'm doing it.
That was pathetic. That was absolutely pathetic.
Now let's move on to the next part of the recipe. So I grabbed from my refrigerator some puff pastry sheets. And I did grab that out of the refrigerator because puff pastry does need to be kept cold. It comes frozen, and I sort of just defrosted it yesterday when I rolled up the beef. And we're supposed to put this onto a lightly floured surface. And then you're supposed to roll it out to be large enough to envelop one of the tenderloin pieces. Having never done this before, I don't know how big that is, but I don't know. We'll do our best to guesstimate. I think that's gonna have to do for it. All right, now again, this is supposed to be kept cold. So I have a sheet tray over here, and he says to, once you have it rolled out, put them, the puff pastry sheets back into the refrigerator. I'm gonna separate them by these little pieces of parchment that came in it. And again, we're making 2 of these, so there's 2 puff pastries. I'll just roll it out to about the same size. All right, I'd say that's about right again. Into the fridge. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is roll up the rest of our ingredients. And he says to do this in plastic wrap. He says, lay a large sheet of plastic wrap onto the work surface. I don't know what his definition is of a large sheet, but I'm gonna do probably about 2 next to each other and hope that that's big enough. There we go. All right. And then put 4 slices of Parma ham. Well, kids, this is another thing that I had to change from Chef Ramsay's recipe. I went and looked at all of our grocery stores and I could not find Parma ham.
Hold on. Cry time? No.
But from what I understand, prosciutto is a good substitute. And apparently it's very valuable because they put it in an impossible to open package. Okay, so it says 4 pieces. And we're gonna lay them out in the middle of our plastic wrap. And it says overlap them slightly. I'm all about the overlap. It says to create a square. Well, it's kind of more of a rectangle than it is a square, but if I did it this way, I could get a square. Like these. It's still a rectangle, but it's less of a rectangle than it was before. I think we're just gonna roll with it. All right, so then the next thing we're supposed to do is spread half of the duxelle evenly over the ham. So, half of the duxelle, which we just got done making, yay. And we spread that evenly over the ham. So then the next thing that we have to do is, it says now to season the beef tenderloins and place them on top of the mushroom covered ham. So we didn't season them before. We're gonna season them now. All right, so I'm gonna take our little beef, season it on all sides. And then we are supposed to wrap it up in the mushroom covered ham. And then we're supposed to use the plastic wrap to wrap it up. Well, that's kind of smart. All right, so we're gonna take our beef and place it into the center. And we're supposed to take the plastic wrap and roll. Okay. Take the plastic wrap and roll the ham over the beef. You know what? I wonder if I should put it at the edge instead.
Tommy wrapped the Wellingtons. What do you think?
I think it's up, man.
Yeah.
There we go. And then roll it over, although it doesn't want to unstick. Doesn't want to unstick. I'm trying to do this sort of like you do sushi. Here we go. All right. Beautiful. All right, roll the tie the plastic wrap to a nice evenly thick log. All right, well, I think that we're kind of there. Tuck this all in. And I think that the idea is that you're supposed to wrap it up in the plastic tightly. So there you go. All right, so now we have our nice evenly thick log. All right, and then it says that we're gonna repeat the step with the other beef tenderloin and then chill for at least 30 minutes. So Let me go through and repeat everything that I just did one more time. All right, guys, so we have our beef rolls and it says to chill this for 30 minutes. So here we go to the fridge. All right, guys, so the next instruction in the recipe is to work on wrapping the beef in the pastry, but I have not finished the half-hour wait time yet, but I was reading ahead and I had missed something when I read it through the first time, and that was with the sauce, that the sauce has to simmer for an hour before it's done. So I wanna make sure that everything's sort of ready at the same time, and that the sauce is sort of waiting for me instead of me waiting for the sauce. So I'm gonna start that now before we finish up with the actual Wellington itself. So I'm gonna head over to the stove and we're going to cook it there. So the instructions for this part of the recipe are: heat oil in a large pan and cook beef trimmings. There's 7 ounces of beef trimmings for a few minutes until browned on all sides. Then we're gonna stir in 4 large shallots, which were peeled and sliced, along with peppercorns, 12 black peppercorns exactly, 1 bay leaf, and again, a sprig of thyme. And we're gonna continue to cook that for about 5 minutes, stirring frequently until the shallots turn golden brown. Then we're going to pour in a splash of red wine vinegar and let it bubble for a few minutes until almost dry. Then we're gonna add in an entire bottle of red wine and boil until it is almost completely reduced. Then we're gonna add in 3 cups of beef stock and bring to a boil again. We're gonna lower the heat and simmer gently for 1 hour, removing any foam from the surface of the sauce until you have the desired consistency. All right, guys, so my sauce is now simmering away. And guys, let me tell you, it took forever for that wine to boil down.
Donkey!
But anyway, guys, it's now time to move on with the rest of the recipe. So we're going to wrap up our beef in the puff pastry. So they say to take and lay out the puff pastry, and then you're going to brush it with egg wash. Now this is 2 egg yolks with a little bit of water mixed together. And so we're gonna brush the surface of the pastry with the egg wash. All right, so our pastry is brushed over. Now we're gonna take our beef, which we are to unwrap from the plastic wrap. And then we're supposed to wrap it in the pastry. Oop. I don't know how tightly I had that wrapped because it's kind of falling apart. Okay, guys, let's calm down. Calm down now, sir. All right. Ooh, cheering, that doesn't look pretty. Maybe I didn't do the mushrooms, I didn't cook them enough. I don't know, but anyway, let's do the wrapping. Okay. Forward, backward, we got a nice seam. And then it says to trim off the excess. So I'm gonna just trim off this stuff because obviously it's not needed. We don't want to have too thick of a pastry on there. All right, and then we will pinch together all the sides and stuff. Here we go. Sort of curl it in because this is going to be the bottom. Weird that the egg wash is like leaking out. Frustration.
Oh, me senseless.
Okay, so that made a nice little package over there. All right, so then it also says we're supposed to then, once it's wrapped, we have to brush it with our egg wash again. So we're gonna do that again. And then we're gonna wrap this in plastic wrap and chill it for another half an hour. All right, and I will do the second one, and then we'll get it into the fridge to chill. All right, guys, so while we are waiting for our Wellingtons to chill and for our sauce to finish reducing, I just want to take this time to remind you that if you this video, please make sure to go down and slap the like button down below. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the little bell for notifications, so this way you're notified every time I post a new video. And guys, hitting that subscribe button really helps me out. It really helps my channel to grow, and it helps YouTube to know that, hey, there are people out there who are wanting to watch my content. So if you could hit that subscribe button, that would be super, super awesome. Also, don't forget that if you want this recipe or any of my recipes, then please make sure to head to my website, bluewizardfood.com, or just get the link in the description below this video. Also, don't forget, if you'd like to follow my food journey when I'm not making YouTube videos, then please go and check out my social medias. I'm both on Instagram and Facebook at Joe the Blue Wiz. All right, so at this point, it's just a waiting game. I'll see you guys back here in about a half hour. All right, guys, so now is the moment of truth. It is finally time to get this all finished and put together. So I have taken my Wellingtons out of the refrigerator. Actually, I did have them in the freezer for the last 10 minutes because I noticed that they were feeling a little soft, and so I wanted to get them a little bit more firmed up. All right, and it says in the instructions to take the top and score it if you want to. It gives like a pretty look to it, so that's what I'm gonna do. You don't want to cut all the way through though. And then it says to wash with the egg wash one more time. So here we go. Okay, and I already have my oven preheated to 400 degrees, so now it's time for us to throw these in. They're supposed to take about 15 to 20 minutes. All right, in the meantime, kids, our sauce has been bubbling away, so now it's time for us to strain it. All right, now it says, of course, that we're supposed to let it cook until it was the correct consistency, but I don't know that that's the correct consistency. I don't know. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw out these remains that are in the pan. I'm gonna throw the sauce back into the pan and cook it down a little bit more because it's looking a little thin for my liking.
You're fake.
Even though it has been cooking for at least an hour. But you know what, guys? This recipe has been taking a long time for every other step, so might as well go with the flow. All right, guys, so the sauce has been cooking for an additional 15 minutes. And it looks a little thicker, but still really kind of watery. But you know what? We're gonna go with it. I don't think it's gonna get any thicker than that, to be honest, no matter how much I cook it down, so that's what we're gonna do. And we're gonna leave that off to the side. Now, I also checked on the Wellingtons, and it's been a full 20 minutes since I put the Wellingtons in, and they did not look done.
Raw!
Okay, so we're going to give them another 5-10 minutes before we pull them out of the oven. I have to tell you guys, if there is one thing that I have learned from this process, it is to give a new level of respect to the contestants and competitors on Hell's Kitchen, because this food, guys, it is not easy. Not easy at all. There's been a lot of stuff that has gone wrong, a lot of things that I would change going forward in the future, but I guess the proof is in the pudding, and I guess we'll see how it tastes. But definitely have a higher opinion of all those Hell's Kitchen contestants, having gone through the experience of making the Wellingtons myself. All right, guys, well, it's been another 5 minutes, and I think we're gonna call these Wellingtons done. They do have a nice golden brown color on them. But surprisingly enough, although I guess not for this recipe, we're still not done. We have to let these sit for another 10 minutes, which is true for any meat recipe. You do want to let it sit and rest so the juices don't all just like spill out of the meat as soon as you cut into it. So that's pretty normal, but we do have to let these sit for another 10 minutes. Now, while we wait for those Wellingtons to sit, I do want to talk about what I might do differently in the future if I were to make this again. First off, the mushrooms. I would make sure that the mushrooms that I did, I put in the food processor instead of chopping them up finely like the recipe says. I would chop them up even more finely in the food processor to get very like tiny, like the most minuscule of pieces. And then I would cook them longer to make sort of like that paste that they're talking about, because I don't think that my mushrooms were cooked down well enough. I would also search high and low and even go online to find the Parma ham, because even though I know that prosciutto could be used as a substitute, it just didn't seem to work out as well. As soon as I started rolling it with the beef, it all seemed to sort of like melt almost, and it sort of started to fall apart. So maybe either thicker slices of prosciutto or, definitely look for the Parma ham. Third thing I would do differently has to do with the sauce. I still don't think that it's thick enough. I think that I would have reduced the wine down a little bit more than I did before I added the beef stock, and because I think that would have made it more thick. And I also tasted it, and it tastes fine, but it does taste a little bit more tannin-y, I guess I think is the word that people use when you talk about wine. It's sort of got like a bitter taste to it. So either use a better quality of wine, because I'll be honest, I used cheap wine because I'm not going to spend like $50 on a bottle of wine that I'm just going to be boiling down. But I would boil it down a little bit more, and then also maybe use homemade beef stock instead of like stock in a box, because I think homemade beef stock has a little bit higher of a gelatin content to it, which might have thickened up the sauce a little bit more than what it is right now. And so I might do that in. But those are the things I think that I would change if I were to do this recipe again. Okay guys, our 10 minutes is up. Also, just another word, I did have to strain the sauce again. I reread the recipe again and discovered that I was supposed to strain it the first time through cheesecloth, which I did not do the first time. So I did that again. All right, now it's time to carve into our Wellingtons, okay? So I'm gonna cut this in half because this one Wellington is supposed to be for 2 people. Obviously, it is huge. Although I think the ones on the show are a single serving. There we go. Oh, it looks pretty on the inside. Let's move that one half out of the way. It's got a nice color to it. All right, not raw, thank goodness. All right, so there is our Wellington. A little soggy on the bottom. That's a different show though.
No
soggy bottom.
And then we will serve with the sauce, which again, I think is definitely supposed to be a lot thicker than this, but we'll add it on anyway. It tastes good. All right, now to taste. Okie dokie. So get in there. And I always wondered about this on the show because it doesn't seem like it's the easiest thing to cut and eat. You know what, guys? It's actually really, really good. I'm actually kind of impressed because I was worried that it was not going to taste as good as what the work was that I put into it, but it actually does taste really, really good. The flavors of the beef really come through, and then you get a little bit of the saltiness from the prosciutto that we added. You get the nice texture from the puff pastry crust that we put around it. It actually does taste really, really good. And the sauce actually tastes really nice along with it too. Adds a little bit of a acidic bite to the recipe that you wouldn't be getting otherwise without the sauce. So overall, guys, it's a really good recipe. So the question though is, does Chef Ramsay approve?
That's delicious.
Oh, thank you, Chef Ramsay. I just worked so hard for this, But anyway, guys, so what have we learned today from this? Because guys, you know that this is not the food that I normally cook here on my channel. Typically, my motto is you do not have to be a professional chef in order to make magic in your kitchen. And this is definitely like a professional chef quality recipe. Now, I'm not saying that you can't make it at home. I just proved that you can, okay? But it's definitely one of those recipes you're gonna have to practice a couple of times in order to get right. But anyway, guys, so what have we learned? We've learned that we read the recipe multiple times before we start cooking, so that this way any of those finer details that I happened to miss as I was going through it, we don't get caught up by those finer details and we don't end up missing things. Second thing that we learned is that patience is a virtue, okay? So if you want really, really, really like fine quality food, all right, you do have to take a little bit of extra time in order to get it. And the third thing that we learned, guys, and I hope this is the takeaway for you, is to really strongly appreciate the people who work at the restaurants that you eat at all the time. Whether they're a fine dining restaurant or if they are just a regular restaurant like a McDonald's even, or a regular family restaurant, or even, the Outback Steakhouse, whatever the case. Guys, working in food service is not easy. It takes a lot of work and it does take practice and skill. And it's something that we should all appreciate for those out there that do those things for us so that we don't have to be inconvenienced on the days that we just don't feel like cooking. But anyway, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. That's all that I have time for here today. Remember, guys, you don't have to be a professional chef in order to make magic in the kitchen. Bye now.